That's how this stuff works. Are we live? It's gonna be an awkward hello. So I've just pressed the live button. Welcome to Die Live Parkour Theory session. Today we are joined with the man, the myth, the legend, Ed Scott.
Hello.
Everyone in Die, can we all just... Right, cool. So Ed Scott is with us today because as much as he is an absolute madman on parkour things, I've realized that whenever I try to describe you, I always like fully undersell you as well. I'm just like, yeah, he's sweet. But anyway, sorry. As much as he is an absolute legend when it comes to his movement, we have met. I've had the pleasure of meeting up with him over the last couple of years and having a number of chats. And one of the chats that we had in, I think it was actually February 2020, before all of this corona stuff went down.
What? Yeah, it was that Ultra, wasn't it?
Yeah, it might have been.
It must have been February 2020.
It might have been February, or it might have been November, like just before that, November 19. But anyway, we had a chat which started. I'll get onto why that actually. We'll forget about this just now. I first want, for people who don't know Ed, I'm going to ask Ed some very basic, generic questions. And you're going to have to talk about yourself. If you run out of things, trust me, I can chat about you all day, so I'll fill in. But I just wanted to ask, first of all, what's your background? Because that's an interesting question. Were you gymnastics trained, as a lot of people can see from your movement? I had a chat with somebody yesterday about that, being like, gymnast. But yeah, give me a little bit background, how you started movement and how you started parkour, I guess.
Yeah, so way back when I was 2 years old, I started gymnastics. So my parents moved about because my dad was in the military, and we moved down to a new town and there was nothing for me to do, so my mum put me into gymnastics. So at the grand old age of 2, I started gymnastics, and just kind of took off from there really. I got into the squad, so I was in like the elite squad, so I was competing both in my county and then nationally as well. At a pretty young age, went all the way through like the gradings. So in gymnastics there's different grades, so you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it goes all the way up to 6. So I went through all the grades. At one stage I went to Lilleshall, which is like the national team training center. So I was pretty well established in gymnastics. I was never going to be like an Olympic gymnast or anything like that, or like a Commonwealth Games athlete or anything like that. But when it comes to the Southwest, I was one of the best in the Southwest, and then I was like top in my age group, probably about top 20 in my age group.
Why do you say that you wouldn't be like an Olympic? Can I just like, that's just
so
comment.
Yeah, so this is where I feel like I'm a really hard worker at things, but I don't think I'm very naturally talented, which is probably quite surprising for most people to hear. I've definitely had a massive help through gymnastics to get me into parkour, and it probably looks like I've come through like I'm quite a naturally talented person because of my skill set. But I feel like my skill set's only become and only helped because I did gymnastics to start with. I think the sport itself is a fantastic sport, and that's how I've got through into parkour. I was competing, and so like I was never like a top 10 gymnast or like a top 5 gymnast, because gymnastics is such a massive sport in the UK here. If you're gonna be an Olympic athlete for Team GB, you need to be podium like top 1, 2, or 3 every year for like 5 years, and then they'll put you into the squad. And I was never good enough to be like podiuming.
When you say good enough, I shouldn't really be delving this deep into like this kind of stuff because it's triggering. When you say you're not good enough, was that something that you felt if you worked harder you could have get that, or is that you saying that you didn't, like, talent wise?
I feel like it's talent wise.
Okay.
I obviously I really enjoyed the sport of gymnastics, and I tried very hard. I had a lot of fears in gymnastics. like when I was a lot younger, I was very scared of the high bar, like swinging around doing giants and stuff like that. Just scared me a lot. But these are things that as I got older, I progressed through, but needed that all needed to happen much sooner, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, interesting.
So like now I'm way older. It's a bit strange.
What age are you now, just to tell everyone?
23.
23.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Way older. Can I just say, honestly, I know like it's 3 years difference, but when you get like past 25, which I've just had this birthday, and you're suddenly like, I feel 50. Do you know what I mean? And it's like everyone's like, oh, I'm 21 and I'm old. I'm like, shut up. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, no. So yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah.
As you're
so
older.
yeah, once I was fears. So when I was like younger, I was petrified, man, of like so many things. Just like the fear of like falling off a high bar and hurting myself, or I think I wasn't very good on a certain apparatus and stuff like that. But as I've got older, those fears have started to go, and I would say I'm more fearless now than when I was younger. Which is kind of a switch on what most people are, but I feel like when you get into parkour and you take strength and conditioning seriously, your fears of injury or fears of falling or failure start to go down, because you're preparing yourself for those things more than when I was younger, I think.
No,
But
yeah,
I
I feel
understood it more when I understand it more now I'm older as compared to when I was a kid.
I mean, your comment on the idea of you're probably more fearless now than you are when you were younger, I find interesting, because I feel that about myself just now. But I was the opposite. I was the kid that was afraid of everything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I was really, and it wasn't just it was almost like it wasn't just the jumps. Obviously, I think it was a lot of just me being me, like anxious and stuff as a kid. But the more being that anxious kid, and then now the more I teach and the more with parkour has allowed me to look at fear and things like that, the more I realized that actually, once you understand fear and understand how it all works, and you're not really like held back by it in a way. Do you know what I mean? It becomes part of it in the ways like, I'm scared. Cool. I can recognize that I'm scared.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit shaky, but that doesn't mean that I can't do this one jump, because I've been doing this for the last 10 years of my life as well.
Yeah.
But no, that's a really interesting.
I think just on that point, just being able to take ownership of your fear now that you're older and you're doing it to yourself makes it easier to battle through. And like when I was doing gymnastics, obviously I was super strong, super fit, do conditioning exercises after every session. But I personally just didn't have an understanding of why I was doing this conditioning exercise and how it was helping me to prevent from injury. Whereas now, when I'm actively taking an interest in, look, I need to get stronger. This is why I need to get stronger. I do squats, I do deadlifts to do this, so that I am able to take impact. And the seed of I'm doing stuff to prevent injury has really like sown itself into, okay, I'm strong enough to take this impact or this scary jump. If I do fail, I can save myself.
No, for sure. I think I'm going to I've got a piece of paper. Ed, I'm learning, I swear. I'm going to write down this idea, because it's a point that you just mentioned about how gymnastics helped you with that fear a little bit, is something I want to talk about, because when we get a bit more into the difference between parkour and gymnastics, because that fear comes in a little bit. I think that with gymnastics, it does give you, when you do gymnastics, it gives you a really fast track. And I'm going to generalize here, but I kind of, what did you call it? You called it black and white teaching. When it's just black and white, you do this, you in order to do this technique, you do this, you do this, you do this.
Yeah.
And which is rule-based learning. I think it's like the actual term is rule-based learning, is you do this because of this. And I've found that you can get gymnasts fear. I'm using mad Scottish phrases. You can get gymnasts fear. You can get them scared, not in ways that you'd be surprised at. All you need to do is, and again, generalize, but take that one movement and make it slightly different. So take it away from, I mean, the most classic one is take it from the gym onto grass. Suddenly these gymnasts can't it's not that they can't do it, because we all both know that physically they can, but it's the way that they've learned it that is not allowed them. So yeah.
But this is the thing with gymnastics, is they don't need to.
Yeah.
So they break the fear of, okay, let's a swing double back off high bar. They'll start by doing it into a foam pit, probably, then take it onto a crash mat, then take it outside, not outside, but take it onto like a hard surfaced area, not hard, but like crash mat-ish. And then that's it. Then they're done. Once they've gone through those stages, those 4 or however many stages the coach implements, once they've got to a crash mat, then they've done it. Like, that's as far as it goes. And I think in parkour, we just go an extra step. So we start as, so we start into a foam pit. Most of us will start into a foam pit or something like that. For a swing double back here, this is just a single skill. We'll start into a foam pit, swing double back, cool, very scary. We've broken the fear of going over twice. Then we break the fear of going over twice onto a crash mat, into a foam pit probably.
Mm-hmm.
That's another fear broken. And then we go from going into a foam pit onto a crash mat to just going onto a crash mat outside onto a hardish area. And then that's when gymnastics would stop. And we go, no, for our next stage, we now have to do it on grass or on concrete or on wood. And that, I think it's just different stages of different sports.
Yeah, I think that for what we were just talking about, I think that in gymnastics, and I think it's also very important to say that gymnastics is about like 100 years older than parkour, if not a little bit more. So they've got what I call like generations and generations of coaches to develop techniques and to make it very.
And even in gymnastics, the techniques are always changing. So the way I was taught to twist is just outdated. Even though I've been out of the sport for I stopped competing in gymnastics in 2012. So I've only been out of the sport for 9 years, and the way they teach to twist going forwards or twist going backwards it's completely different.
Does it then mean that technique is like, you said it's outdated? Does that technique then not be used, or
they just won't use it?
So this is the thing, and I think this is to come on to gymnastics, how gymnastics is different in a way, is I think that with parkour, if we call like gymnastics as rule-based learning, parkour is like rule-breaking learning. And I think because of a number of different things, I think, as we say, gymnastics has got 100 years culture, whereas the culture that we have is basically based off a bunch of teenagers going outside and testing the boundaries, not just physically, because that's the other thing, is you go into gymnastics, we're here to do this, like we're here to do a sport. Parkour kids are just a bunch of hooligans jumping on walls, essentially. Do you know what I mean?
And like just trying to find your own way to do stuff. And that's the beauty of the sport, and that's why it attracts so many people. And
sorry, carry on.
And that's why it attracts so many different people, because gymnastics is obviously very rule-based, like you said, and then parkour is very fun-based, I guess, or experimental.
So it's more like, the kids outside when they want, because I had a guy recently, actually, he came to the door of Diese Woche when I was in, and he was like, hey, so can I come in? And I was like, at the moment we're in lockdown, I'm sorry, we can't come in, anything. And he was like, yeah, but there's just things that I can't really train outside. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I can't really train flips and stuff. And I'm like, you're talking to a guy who learned front flips and stuff outside with his mates, just sending it. It is possible. You will potentially hurt yourself. I think that's the difference as well, is just that gymnastics has a foolproof way of being like, this is why you won't hurt yourself. But I think the average, let's say, parkour person, generalizing, are the kind of person to be like, oh, so you're telling me how to do this that way? Cool. I get that that's a good idea. I want to do it my way. And then they just, out of spite, out of just their own way of doing it, they kind of go against it, which I say with a smile, because I'm definitely that guy. And I think there's a lot to be learned. And I think that's the thing, is there's a lot to be learned from having that kind of mentality. But this is why I want to talk about this, because I have made the mistake in the past of being just a big-headed parkour person, to be like, no, gymnastics is rubbish, which is pretty much what my chat was when I was having the chat with you and all up, just be like, gymnastics. But that was like the very early stages of me trying to talk about it. But my whole point is like, gymnastics is cool, but it has a very rigid way of learning, which is like top down, whereas parkour is a lot more, we learn with each other, and I think that creates an interesting learning environment. But you know what I mean?
So I agree. I agree, but I would say that you still do have this learning with each other aspect of gymnastics,
Yeah.
especially in groups. So I was very lucky. The people that I was training with were either the same as me or better. So I
Yeah.
was always not the best in the group, or not quite the worst. But we always had like a team camaraderie, and I was always working with someone, two people that were similar to the same age group as me. And we'd obviously learn the skills together. But the way we learned the skills was through preparations and through this, and this. But we did this, and this together. Whereas in parkour, you can say, do a front flip, and you and your mates can go, cool, that means we're just going to go and try and learn it ourselves, which is a different type of team learning, I think. I would say there's two different types.
100%. I think it shows my ignorance of gymnastics in the sense that, before, especially before I went to Ollerup as well, and I think this, I really didn't really know much about gymnastics, but I thought that I did, and I think that camaraderie is something that's important in all kind of group community anythings. Do you know what I mean? And I think as you say, the difference between, let's say, a group of young gymnastic, in this case boys, and a group of young parkour boys is, the way in which the gymnastic boys are still in a group and still having team working and bonding and stuff, but in a different system, whereas the parkour guys are in a lot of ways left on their own to then be like, go and figure this out. Just out of the way that they come out.
A lot of so gymnastics tends to, the high level gymnast tend to be people that are really good at listening and really good at taking on certain bits of advice and changing it straight away. Whereas I would say a high level parkour athlete are not very good at listening, but really, really good at finding their own way to do the skill, and just sticking with it, and like perseverance, I would say, is massive in parkour. But it's just two different people, and these obviously there's like flow where someone from gymnastics can come over into parkour and they are really, really good because there's now a bit of a blueprint on how to learn skills, whereas before in parkour you'd kind of go, right, here's a cork, I know what it looks like, but I'm just going to throw myself head first and try and learn it. Whereas a lot of gymnasts, you probably wouldn't tend to find.
They get scared. They'll be like, okay, if I'm not being told how to do it, I don't really want to explore it. I think before we go into because I want to basically ask you, like, block by block, like the actual techniques and the way that you learn it and how we would put them together. But the one thing I want to ask is, so we were talking about how parkour now has, let's say, blueprints of movements. And I want to ask the question of, if you went and just took those blueprints, as in like somebody goes, here you go, here's a whole bunch of ways how to learn a cork, how to learn a Kong, how to learn this, and you just learned it, would you say that's learning parkour? Because my basically, it's a leading question, but it's basically this idea of, by you just taking it and taking the movements like you would in a gymnastics way, do you know what I mean? Just take these movements and these people just go and learn it from a rule-based mindset. Would you actually be learning parkour?
Well, so yeah, I would say yes, because although skills are transferable, so I don't know if you'd be learning parkour, but you'd be learning a front somersault. It's the same as when you teach a diver to do a front somersault, or a trampolinist to do a front somersault, or a gymnast to do a front somersault. When they're learning the front somersault, are they a gymnast, a trampolinist, or a diver, or are they just someone learning a new skill? I think it becomes a parkour athlete when it's transferred into their sport. So a diver becomes, the front somersault in diving becomes when they go into the water or something like that, or gymnastics when it's put into a routine or done on a sprung floor, or a parkour athlete when it's done maybe outside or something like that. I see what you mean by, are they learning parkour? Because I guess there's a whole sort of like philosophical thing with parkour, like you learn this to be stronger, to do this and stuff like that. But it's interesting.
The reason I say that is because as I say, it was a leading question because I obviously have an opinion on this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Bit of a dickhead move to be like, oh, really cool, that's cool. Good one, Ed. Anyway, but I think
This
for me,
is right.
I just want to hear what you think of this, because I think that, because we were just talking about how in a sort of parkour sense, it's the exploration with your mates that's kind of part of it, in a sense. And I think for me, the question would be is if, I really like that analogy of like, if you get a front flip, and depending on which discipline you were learning that front flip, does it really change? I had a very similar one with backflips. It's like you can learn a backflip with gymnasts, you can learn backflip with parkour people, you can learn backflip with break dancers, and they'll all be completely different techniques.
Yeah.
When at the end of the day, all you're really doing is learning how to jump up, tuck, and then land on your feet again.
You're rotating backwards. That's all it is.
When I would define it is when, for example, if you were to teach, if you got parkour and just blocked it, and the reason I said rule-based learning is by, okay, let's say Ed takes these bunch of kids and just teach them how to do a Kong perfectly like this, and then next thing, perfectly like this. I would say that you're learning parkour moves, but the culture is completely different. Whereas if you, as Ed Scott, then take these guys and go, today we're all going to figure out how to do a front flip from point one. I've got tips, but I don't really know it. We're all going to, and you design the class in a way, or not the class, but you design the session in a way that the exploration is as part of the achieving the front flip as it's as important as achieving it is part of the learning. Because I think that that's the thing as well as doing gymnasts, and I again, we can expand on this point in a sec, is gymnastics seems to me a very quickly done, your career is very short.
Well, and this is what I was going to say. The reason why gymnastics is as it is, especially for elite level gymnasts. So I can only talk on gymnastics as a men's artistic competitive gymnast. I can't talk of it as a recreational gymnast, which is like someone that doesn't compete. I was always in it to compete and to try and do as well as I can in competitions. And the thing with that is that competitions always have a deadline. Yeah. You need these skills for a deadline. Whereas parkour often doesn't have a deadline. You don't have to compete. You don't have to do anything really. Yeah. Whereas in my career as a gymnast, I had certain dates where I needed certain skills to be done for so that I was ready to take it to a competition. Yeah. So I completely agree that the sort of everyone get together and we're going to figure it out together, that is an excellent way of teaching. And often, like in education, tends to be a better way to teach, because the child learns through mistakes, and is able to like have a better skill, and better understanding of a skill.
I think also sorry, you carry on.
But often you just don't have the time to do that, because timing is such a thing. Often you can you'll have session plans and stuff like that, but for certain skills you just need to crack on and get them done so that they're ready for a competition. And you then understand them through repetition instead of through experimenting on
and I think that's why it comes into this, because I'm fixated by this term like rule-based learning. I think that's when it comes into, that's not the limitation of it, because it's undeniable. I mean, Ollerup, oh my god, people go to Ollerup, guys are doing double layouts on a piece of air this big, and then doing another double layout, which is like a double backflip with straight body. It's crazy. But I think that's the thing, is then it's that experimentation. The minute that it derives from it, I'm half speaking German, when it derives from something else, that's when it's harder for the gymnastics, let's say, mindset to do it. It's not impossible, and the reason it's not impossible is because you exist and many other people exist. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that is a beautiful thing. Once you've learned that mindset, you don't forget it, but you can learn other ways of doing things.
And that's why gymnasts, I think why people always say, because when I was younger, it's like, you learn gymnastics. Oh, okay. It's this thing of just like, you've learned, okay, cool. That's the reason. And I'm sorry, dude, I get it in a way, because I had to sit there and watch it, but it is amazing
having
this level of body awareness and just these rules, like, because
that whole argument, sorry, just quickly on that little thing, that whole argument of, oh, he's a gymnast, that's why he can do it. That just, like, what do you mean? Like, I've worked so hard to learn the skill, but when I was younger, so maybe when I was before the person has even thought about doing a front flip, I worked so hard to get a front flip. But now I'm older, because I did gymnastics. It's completely, you've done gymnastics, it doesn't really count.
Yeah.
Like that whole like mindset, like, no, I've tried really hard here.
Yeah, I think it's that kind of topic is something that I think we need to kind of, not we, but generally we need to figure out a way of speaking about the general and then separating the general idea from the personal. Do you know what I mean? Because generally speaking, someone who had the opportunity to do gymnastics at a young age has got a bit of an edge, but that person still worked hella hard at the time.
They worked, do you know
really
what I mean?
They still took that opportunity and fucking sent it.
They were just fortunate to be in that opportunity, and that's the way I see my gymnastics career. I was fortunate to go to a facility that was a very, very good facility with very, very good coaches.
And even then, just because you did do gymnastics in the past, it's what you do with it. There's people out there who did gymnastics in the past and never really did anything with it. Whereas, like, for example, one of my he was actually one of my coaches, Scott Houston, he's now living in Glasgow, but he was a guy from down in England who came up, and he had gymnastics experience, right? Yeah. But when he was in the community, and I'm talking like 10 years ago, he was the one doing the biggest PK stuff. Do you know what I mean? The biggest. And then when he was done doing the biggest PK stuff, he kind of retreated back into movement and his understanding, but this sort of, not necessarily gymnast flair, because it's hard to define because movement is just movement, but this attention to detail that you get from gymnastics is something that I think that parkour, because as you say, sorry, we were talking about this idea of parkour, people don't have time limits. That's why for me personally as well, you'll see a jump that you want to do and you'll be like, yeah, I'll do that at some point. Do you know what I mean? Whereas as what I see in your training specifically, and this is why I kind of want to get into the actual, like, what can people take away from this part of it, is, as you say, you don't have you train like you have a time limit.
Yeah.
In a way. And I think that we've talked about this, why I want to talk about weightlifting in a bit, but like you train like you do have a time limit. Now, is that something that you mentally sort of put on yourself to be like, I need to get this outside now, in a way, or is that a way that you like that keeps you driving?
It's definitely something that I'm thinking about more often. So since being up here in Bristol, I had lots of like really interesting talks with Harvey from Fifth Unit. I like some really interesting talks with him about pushing through fear. And I think it comes back to this whole, like, it's not really to do with gymnastics as much, but it's just about pushing through fear.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe something that I've learned in gymnastics, but I haven't connected it almost. That the fear window is so small, so that I need to break through the fear before it becomes a wall almost. So like that whole like thing of I'm doing this really scary jump. If I put it off, it becomes an even more scarier jump. Or I'm learned this flip inside. I need to take it outside very soon before it becomes something that it isn't. Yeah. And I think since being in Bristol and training with like some really high level guys, I've now understood that more and more, that you see a challenge, you see a skill, and you need to break it before it becomes something that it isn't.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, no, I fully get what you mean. And I think that's for me personally, as somebody who has, let's say, a head that thinks really quickly, it can be really quick for me to go from, hey, I just got this cool thing, to, hey, I'm absolutely terrified of it.
Yeah.
And there can be no correlation to any sort of reason. Do you know what I mean? I used to, when I first did backflips, I couldn't do backflips, but I could do back fulls. And my friend, Chris Brady and Stuart Darish, I'm just saying that because they're trickers, get hit up the Glasgow tricking community. They used to hold my t-shirt, and I'm only going to stand up to show you. They used to hold it like this. Yeah. And I could do a backflip on any surface. And then when they weren't there, I couldn't do it at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the sort of black and white way of gymnastic training can really help. But yeah, I love this. The reason why I love this chat is simply because it's about fear. And I think that parkour is a sport that really it delves into fear and really tries to understand it, whereas gymnastics is a sport that can help you just overcome it in some ways.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just move it on slightly because, as I said, we've talked about this for hours. We can keep on doing it, and I don't think this will be the last one of us talking about this topic. But a question that I have, and also Oliver Lees, who is a friend of mine over here, and he's just commented on the live thing, is how would we then, let's say I am your average parkour teenager at about 13, not done gymnastics, and kind of learning parkour by myself. How would you transfer for your mental game? Let's just say in the idea of mental game, learning a trick from the gym and taking that outside. And what do you have like a process for that? Or
so something that was really heavily drilled into me when I was a gymnast is progressions. So to get a skill, you do these things and you get the end goal. So the end goal, we'll take it back to the front flip. The end goal of to get to a front flip. So I start with stretch jump. Can you jump up in a straight line? Can you do a dive roll? Can you dive roll onto something? Can you roll off something to land on your feet? Then you do it onto a crash mat, into a foam pit, all that sort of thing. So what are you starting with and where are you going and what are the appropriate steps that go in between? And I think that's a very gymnastics way of going about a skill. But for a certain skill to take it outside, I'd be thinking about what certain things do I need to do to feel confident and comfortable to take it outside. So a skill that was really scary for me was a Souk full twist. So the Sukahara full twist, and it's just one that springs to mind because it was such a mental block for me. I remember that was a vault that I used to compete as a gymnast. So I used to do that skill like every week, maybe 20 times or something like that. So I'd have it on repeat in my head of what I need to do, where the hands go, where I pull, and then when I open out. So when I went to compete that skill, I obviously knew what I was doing and I was comfortable doing it. Pulling that over into parkour, the setup was slightly different. So for those that don't know a gymnastics vault, you jump on a springboard and then you take off a vault and then you go to the floor. Whereas when you do it in parkour, you tend to do it off something level and then drop away to the floor. So I went to fluidity with Tom and Charlie and Tim, and I was just drilling the skill over and over and over again onto a crash mat. So I felt confident enough to take it outside when I wanted to. And I think having understanding of a skill and drilling a skill so much so that you can do it with your eyes closed or whatever, like have it so ingrained that it's ready to go. It's just so important. It's something that people forget. A lot of people get really excited when they first learn a skill. And of course, that's the beauty of it. You do parkour, or you do gymnastics or whatever to learn new skills and you get a buzz from that. And a lot of people in parkour tend to forget to consolidate the skill. So once you've learned it, you really need to consolidate it. So corks on the floor. Once you've learned one cork, excellent. Learn the cork, do it for months and months and months before you even think about going to learn a double cork. Like there's no point in learning a double if you can only just do a single. And that's something that I would be doing over and over and over again. So I'd learn a cork on floor. I'd go through the preps to get a cork on floor, do it on floor loads and loads and loads and loads. And then once I'm confident I can do it 9 out of 10 times every time, or 10 out of 10 times, then I'd go onto grass. Or I might feel confident even before that to go onto grass. And then once it's drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled on grass, then I'd maybe go onto concrete. I think I still get so scared of skills. But it's only through consolidating the skills and repetitive training that the skills become second nature and allow me to not necessarily think about the skills so much when I'm doing it in a new environment.
When I look at no, that was great. That was fucking sweet. One of the questions, I had a quick look at what Oliver actually asked, and it's an interesting one because I think the experience of doing this will be different. But he's asking how much more how difficult is it to take something from a gym outside into parkour. Now, I know what we just asked. When I just asked that, you then explained it. And I think the reason why I mean, either, so I'm trying to figure out what Oliver was meaning and also figure out what the question in my head was. I think Oliver might be meaning when you first started doing that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When you first started had you trained gymnastics, then started training parkour, and then started to do this, or did that happen right about the same time?
So the whole repetitive training is a massive thing in gymnastics.
Yeah.
So that's a skill that I've been able to transfer across into parkour.
So it was from day one you were already doing it.
From day one, you go in as a child in the squad that I was in, and you'd go and do your, exactly. You'd go and do your floor exercise, and you'd do your floor exercise 10 to 20 times exactly the same. And this is coming back to your thing about attention to detail. It's all about attention to detail in gymnastics, because you're starting with everyone, especially in grades, when you step onto the floor, you have 10 points. Mm-hmm. When you leave the floor, the judges take points away from you. So everyone starts with the same thing. And it's the way you do skills, that with your legs, your toes pointed, stretching up out of certain skills. If you do that incorrectly when it comes to like the rules, then you lose points. So this is like that really specific attention to detail sort of thing.
I think that's another point to talk about. Let's say the differences between the two is the fact that, even within your training, the aesthetic, or like how it looks to an outside observer, is taken fully into account.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter how it feels in a way. Like, you just got to do it. And it's, if we tell you it looks right, then it's there. Whereas parkour, it's, I would say, a kind of the other way around. I think there's still people, like, at one point when you have the skill, then you can make it like look better or clean or whatever. But there is this, I mean, I think Blaine talked about it. Chris Whaaat saying something along the lines is like, the first level is you get it no matter how, you just get it.
Yeah.
Then the next level is you get it clean. And then the next level is you do it fast. And I think that is a very sort of inside out way of viewing it. And I think gymnastics from day one, not day one, I keep repeating that, but you know what I mean? From the first moment you do it, it is all about how it looks.
Yeah.
So it is possible to get it wrong in a way.
Yes.
Whereas parkour, as we say, like, we can do, like, at the moment, we had this conversation last night with Verena saying that cartwheels sideways or at an angle aren't cartwheels for her because it's not straight.
Yeah.
And that's a gymnast way of thinking, where I'm like, with us or with parkour or trickers, it's still a cartwheel. It's just, as we say, it's this kind of breaking the rules kind of
definitely
thing. But I think that makes it harder, and this is why we're talking about harder to then keep yourself disciplined in a way and have your own processes. Because you're subject to your own fears in a way. And if you, as you say, if you don't have those good practices of like being able to take a new skill for yourself and then take it out and then drill it once you've got it, and being honest with yourself as well about how you feel about it. I think that's for me personally, and I also see it other places, but for me personally, that was always a big thing. It's just like the skills that I didn't like, I then wouldn't do. Whereas in gymnastics, the skills that you didn't like, it didn't really matter. You just kind of,
you still have to do them anyway. Yeah. So that was like, that was a big thing with me as well. Because I was so scared of certain things, I still needed to do those things, which at that age is probably a really good thing to have happened to me. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people, when they do parkour, even now, if they're scared of something or scared of a certain aspect of something, they just won't do it. Yeah. And that's completely fair enough. Like, you're your own person. The sport doesn't require you to do anything.
Yeah.
Go and do what you want. Whereas in gymnastics, I needed to learn to do a giant all the way around the bar, so that I could go and do a competition to score a certain amount, so that I could go on to the next thing. And I was just completely petrified of going around the bar without loops on or whatever. I was scared of coming back down to the bar, but through coaching and through progression and through talking it through, I was able to beat that fear. I think that's just set me up perfectly now for when it comes to parkour. I don't necessarily need someone else to talk it through, but I often will. So when I'm training with people now, I'll talk to Josh or to Tim and be like, look, what do you think of this? Why is this scary? Will it make a difference? And I think just talking it through really helps still.
Yeah,
me,
no, fully. That is actually the whole concept of how we as a culture have taught ourselves is an idea that I have fully latched onto. But I think that's the thing is within gymnastics, it's got already quite a well-established organization structure. So if you want to learn, you go to a class and then you're already meeting somebody who's been doing gymnastics for however long. And I think with parkour, me personally, my parkour experience, I was hella lucky because in the community that I was part of, Glasgow was quite an old school community. Like Glasgow parkour coaching was set up round about the same time as Parkour Generations. So they were quite old. Well, sorry lads, but in context of
drop
parkour,
yourself in it now.
Yeah, oh god,
all the old dogs.
they're all gonna come for me. But yeah, I feel as though my point with that was more just like I had what I would call almost like a sort of bigger brothers. Scott Houston, as I already mentioned, was one of them, but like Chris Grant, David Banks, Omer Jan, I had all these sort of older guys that, when I was being this young kid, because I was about 15 when I started with these guys, if I got scared of something, they would see it and be like, what are you doing? Come here and stick this. And not even in a sense of, because I think I did a few classes, but because of my best mate, Paul, who was also in the same school, we ended up just going training with the coaches anyway. So I think I did classes for a little bit and then just ended up going training, but it was the same kind of culture. It was the same idea. If you do it properly. And I think that comes from having intergenerational people, if that sounds too fancy, having people of different levels of respect, and also because physically in some form I was doing much bigger things than them because I was like 15 and just fucking sending it. But mentally I was getting scared of things that weren't making sense, and I think that's what these guys were teaching me at the time. So for me personally, I also had that respect of find the things that you're scared of and do it.
And I think I was lucky with the people that I started parkour with. I started parkour with two gymnasts as well, in Tim Champion and Steve Jehu. And we.
So you started. Sorry, just to clarify, you started parkour with Tim Champion.
Yeah. Nice. Me and Tim pretty much started parkour together, and then Charlie came in as well, and we all kind of just sort of went up together. But I think having the understanding from gymnastics and the skills that you do need to be done properly and safely, and just having a very good spatial awareness understanding and of like how you should land to avoid heel bruise or whatever like that, which often people start parkour and they just won't understand because why would they understand? Whereas we would come from a gymnastics background of spatial awareness and understanding of rotation and twist and where that would set you up in regards to landing and hurting yourself and stuff like that.
Which is most parkour people are just like, send it. And if I land on my feet. And that's the thing. I think that's the thing because, sorry. We're talking about technique and style. And I think you and Tim are two people, it makes sense. I don't know why I hadn't clocked onto the fact that Tim was also a gymnast. But your guys' styles are so clean to the point of perfection in a way that is interesting to watch. Because I think that I had a chat with Julius Klein, my guy, Julius Klein, and we talked about individuality, and style, and it was kind of through that conversation that, at least in my mind, I got a clear idea of what style is, because that's a really different. It's kind of like when people say flow, it's really difficult to kind of talk about it, and I think what style is this idea of bringing your individuality out in your movement. Which means that when people say I have no style, it's kind of like, no, you do. It's just 9 times out of 10, you're trying to be like somebody else, which is why your movement isn't necessarily going there. And I think that for me, and again, I think it's almost like an art in a way, it's subjective. But for me, when I look at your style, I can see the Ed Scott style in your movement. And I can see the Tim Champion style in the movement, but they're so clean and precise. I think some people might even not say that they don't have style, but you do. But it's
this is the thing. I see myself as quite an unstylish parkour athlete. Just because of I watch other people, and I think I obviously have my own way of doing things and my own style, I would suppose. But you've got so many extremes in the parkour world of like Pasha, of Josh Malone, of Foskey, of Kai. They're all just massive, like so far apart from each other. I want to be in the middle. That's my goal pretty much. I want to be able to do anything and everything that everyone else can do. Like that, as I see myself doing parkour, that's what I want. So like a stylish little twist and stuff might take me a little bit longer to learn because I'm not naturally gifted is the right word. I'm not naturally inclined to do stuff like that sort of way. So the stuff that Josh Malone's doing at the moment, some weird like off-axis grabbing under leg sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
No clue about how to do it, but I will get there eventually through the tools that I've learned on how to learn things.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You know what I mean? I think, yeah.
No, fully. No, and like, this is, I think for me, because I think you definitely have style, but I think it's a kind of, now that we've had this conversation of your analogy of how everyone's a kind of extreme. And again, parkour is a sport of individuality. These people became good at what it is that they did because the sport encouraged this individuality. And in a way that's like, as you say, even the cleanness, like there was a kind of there's a level of cleanliness that people want in parkour in it to a sense.
And that varies from country to country.
And it varies from country to country. And also some people would want style over tech in a way as well sometimes. And it's as we say, it's completely subjective. But I think for me now, knowing you and having the pleasure of seeing you come up and now talking to you over the last sort of year or so about how you think, your style is so apparent because it's the way that is your individuality, as we talked about. Like you want to be in the middle, therefore you work at getting a certain level of tech and quality to your movement. I've very rarely seen you, like, as you say, lose spatial awareness in a move.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas I also know people like Julius. I'm training with Julius, and there's times where he flips and he's like, "Wait, I've got no idea," and he saves himself. But it's those moments of like, that's sketchy. Cool. I've never seen you go that sketch. Do you know what I mean? It's like he either gets it or he doesn't do it at all.
So yeah, there is that for sure. But I just especially when I'm training and I'm learning new things, I don't want to limit myself of I only learn these sort of things that are on these sort of axis. Like you see like these like double underflips and stuff like that. I just don't understand them yet, and I need to learn them. That's sort of the way that it's going for me now. Like the extremes of parkour are getting so far apart. My aim in the middle of like trying to be the most well-rounded person I can is just like it's sick. Oh no, what's going on?
I can still see and hear you.
Oh, okay. Where have you got? Oh no, I can't see you at all.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, well, can you still hear it?
I can still see and hear you. No worries.
Okay, well, I can't see you anymore, but I'm just going to talk to the screen. What is going on?
I can chat a bit of rubbish, and then you can have a quick troubleshoot on your laptop. Yeah, I mean, I think that, I like that analogy of how your circle has just got bigger. I think I hit that point at one point, and rather than being like, oh, I'm going to get my thing bigger, I went, fuck it, I'm just going to do my own shit kind of thing. Like, it was just like, there's no point keeping up with these guys. I'm just going to do it. But to be fair, if I'm honest, going back to what really pushes me is when I am training, as you say, with guys that you genuinely connect with. Like I think it's also because I teach a lot. The idea of learning something is one of those things that in my head, it takes a lot of effort in a way to like learn something, especially the things that I'm scared of. And I'm scared of most things. But when I train with somebody like Julian Whaaat, he manages to talk to me in a way that it's just like you and your mate doing it. And it's like this kind of idea of like, okay, fair enough. I've been doing this 10 years. It's apparently my job. There's some level of safety in that, but also like with Julian, it's this kind of like when we joke around and when we're playing, he wouldn't tell me to do something that he didn't believe that I could easily do.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that's the confidence that I get. Whereas when I'm drilling something, trust me, I can drill a move 1,000 times and still come away from this idea of being like, no, that wasn't good, which then doesn't give me the confidence. So to the idea that you were saying about in the gymnastics, you were like an equally rounded group of guys.
Yeah.
Some guys were better than you. Some guys were like, and you all had this thing. I think that's really important as well, because yeah, it really does depend on who it is that you're training with and how it is that affects your perspective of the sport and parkour in general, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Did you manage to get my face back on the screen?
I no. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I can't see you anymore.
Can you see your computer?
Very strange. Yeah.
Are you open via the browser or an app?
By the browser.
So if you maybe click on the browser again, is the tab up?
I think I've requested to join.
That's hilarious that you're still in.
Yeah.
But you're now requesting to rejoin it. I don't have a request from you. Interesting. We'll carry on chatting and see if we can figure this out as we go. It's not, as for the people at home, this is not on a professional level. This is not like, what's it called? This is me and Ed having a chat. One question that came up that my mate Vusi, he works here in Dihala, has asked, and he says, do you keep a movement journal? So do you keep a record of, I think actually, when I say a movement journal, I'm going to let you answer this question because I've actually heard a similar thing that other athletes have. But you keep, well, how do you keep a record of the stuff that you've learned and want to learn and stuff?
In the loosest possible thing, I don't have a move journal.
No.
I will go through. So I've learned so many different skills over the years, and over like my career as a parkour athlete, I'll often forget certain things. But when it comes to most things, I'll just remember what I can and can't do. I have a whole load of things on my phone of skills that I want to learn.
Yeah.
Like different wall tricks, because they're being pushed at the moment massively, or different bar re-grabs and stuff like that. I have a load of things that I would love to learn, but I don't have like a specific thing of a book of what I can do. Just because I feel like I will be able to remember and implement the things that I can already do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think especially in your training, from what I see anyway, like you have once you get a move to the point where you have done it, it's kind of unlock in a way. Do you know what I mean? You will then regularly do that move in your training. Do you know what I mean? In a sense. Whereas,
exactly.
For example, like me, I'll spend a day like exploring some weird thing. You got it back. We're back.
Got it back. I've got it back. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened then.
No, it's all right. We did well, I think. We just chatted over. I can spend an entire hour finding a brand new move, and I'll be like, sick, I've got that brand new move. But the word that you use, consolidating, is something that in parkour stuff, I consolidate a lot of things. But that's, again, it's down to the training that I had from back in the day. Do you know what I mean? A lot of this newer stuff that I do, I don't necessarily have that same personal discipline. Whereas when it's to do with parkour, in my head, there's rules. Yeah. But there's not rules. It's just what the guys told me was right.
And I think that's just something that I've been so lucky to learn from a young age, of this whole consolidation thing. I was so lucky to learn that so young, that I've been able to implement that into my parkour thing. And this isn't like the Ed Scott way of thinking. It's what my experiences have been within sport, not just gymnastics. Like I've done many different sports. Like I'm trained in outdoor education, so I've done a lot of climbing and a lot of kayaking and all that sort of thing. But this thing of consolidation has really stuck with me throughout all of the different sports that I've learned.
Do me a favor and just describe what you mean by consolidation? Just because it's just a little bit of a big word that even in my head I know what it means. I'm like, I feel like I want somebody to explain to me what it means.
Personally, to me, I hope it's right now. Personally, to me, is being able to do a certain skill or requirement every time, every time. So I go through a consolidation phase of, I've just learned how to do a cork. Now I'm going to do the cork loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of time, really consolidate it. So learn it a lot, learn it inside out, back to front, eyes closed, so that it's locked in from wherever I need it. And I think that's something. I think it's just a different way of pretty much just saying practicing. I practice it a lot, and I practice certain skills a lot, and especially when it comes, I think this is slightly different for me than it would be for you. When it comes to competition season, I practice certain skills a lot and often neglect a lot of things because I just don't need them. This whole the dream of mine of becoming the most well-rounded parkour athlete, which I think is pretty much everyone's dream as well.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's actually not just my dream, but
it's great that you've described it in that sense, because it's just at the end of the day, that is what the idea of
that's what to
people
me
say parkour is. Do you know what I mean? But
exactly.
It's
that's what I was always taught parkour is it's you want to do everything.
And be
in a
ready
selfish
at any
way.
point.
Exactly. Yeah. And in a selfish way, I want to do anything and everything that anyone else can do. Like, why shouldn't I be able to? That's a bad example. I was going to say, why shouldn't I be able to lash as far as Tim? There's probably height factors and other factors in that.
We can also make Tim's lache smaller. I can organize.
There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to swing and do laches with Daryl and Tim on one day, and the next day go and do weird off-axis flips with Pasha on the next. Like, I feel like it depends what person you are, but for me, I want it to be. I want to be everything. I want to be able to do everything, and I feel like that's where the most enjoyment for me is going to come out of a sport, because I can go and do, because the sport is so vast. There's like so much going on. I can go and have fun, like anywhere, really. If you know what I mean.
Sorry, I think somebody like Julian PK, I wonder who that is, has just messaged a question that I'll ask you in a sec, because I'm stuck with this idea that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
I think also just kind of touching on it, because this is something that I'm only now getting into, because we talked about this idea of like when you were younger, you probably had maybe more fear and the fear aspect. I think a lot of that comes down to that idea that you just mentioned, this idea of the you. Because for me, like genuinely, like I love parkour, but I was way more hyped on the community factor, right? Whenever I kind of like delved into myself, I became not quite like selfish, but it was just like I became almost competitive, and I didn't like that aspect of me.
Yeah.
So I didn't really do it, if you know what I mean. And that's what I liked about parkour, is the non-competitive or whatever, like this kind of, we're all in it for ourselves. But due to becoming a coach full time, a lot of the I disappears in a lot of my work. Do you know what I mean? I'm focusing on my kids or focusing on the community or this. So the I completely disappeared for a long time. And it's only when you start going, what is it that I want to do? And because in terms of jumps and stuff as well, like I'd look at jumps and be like, I know I could probably do that, because as a coach, you're constantly analyzing. So I'm looking at the jumps going, I probably could do that. But I was neglecting the kind of selfishness, because we're used to, we don't want to be like too big headed and stuff. And especially now we're like, as you say, it's that kind of feeling like we don't want to be selfish, but it's also not selfish to be like, I want this in a way.
Yeah. And I think the mindset that I'm at the moment is I still want to be a competitive parkour athlete. Mm-hmm. So at this stage in my career, I need to be selfish. Yeah. I need to go and I need to go and go, look, there's certain jumps here that I'm going to go now and go and do, and I'm going to go and do them on my own. I need to go and drill these things. This needs to happen for me. Whereas I completely get that, because I coach quite a lot still. Well, when Corona's not on, when I can. When coaching, it's a completely different thing. It's what can you do to help someone else, and I that's something that I massively enjoy as well. I'm lucky that I'm able to separate those things in my head, where I can go coaching, focus on getting these group of individuals to learn or have an experience positive to do with parkour. Yeah. And then I can go, for me, you need to go and drill these certain skills so that when you go to a competition, you can do these and do the best you can.
Yeah. I think that's definitely an idea that I am starting to explore more, is the kind of I within the training. And it's something that, yeah, it does come out. But I think also, yeah, that's why, for
Do
example,
you do stuff for yourself when you train? Do you go, I don't know, I'm scared of doing
yeah,
jumps to rails. Today I'm just going to do 20 jumps to rails.
for me personally, I've fallen out of, not necessarily fallen out of training, but I've switched because I do parkour full time as a job, pretty much.
Yeah.
I've been the last 5 years full time parkour coaching in some form. It's no longer, it's not that it no longer was a personal thing, but over the last couple of years, it's just kind of changed to, it became just a background thing that I did every day.
Yeah.
And then because it's become, and because when you teach, you're always working at about maybe like 60% of what you can do, and you're stuck there because when you're, for me at least, in the way that I teach, I don't want to be doing massive stuff in front of my kids who can't do that.
Yeah.
There is an element of that in it, in the terms of being like, yeah, showing them what's possible. But because I'm at the level of teaching that I am, I'm like, okay, I am not that person, but I've got a coach that is that guy and can teach really well with that side. I'd rather they push that. For me, I kind of like, as a coach, I like melting into the background a little bit.
Yeah.
But then again, when I train, I'll do stuff and then people will be like, wow, that was sick. And I guess it's this kind of suddenly aware that other people are watching. I did acting when I was younger. That's like what I wanted to do before I committed to parkour, which is strange because in acting, you're in front of everyone and you can chat and it's fine. With parkour, if I feel the same kind of watchedness, all of my confidence goes away. And it's not even confidence. It's like my body behaves differently.
But the thing with acting is you're putting on a front, whereas in parkour, you're almost doing it for yourself, aren't you? It's like, it's you. Sorry.
The thing that I was going to say was what you're saying is there is a type of training that I do find myself, if I find something scary, and this is the thing, is that voice, and I've become better at it now. It's almost the only training that I really do sometimes. Is like, yeah, when I find something scary, I'll deliberately try and do it because I'm practicing that idea that I am scared of this and I want to just do it. And I think it's building up on this idea of like, yeah, I still have that. And I've written it down as well because we talked about it earlier, is even though you have all these processes that you have to take tricks outside and do stuff, you still have fear.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I would say I work more with fear now than I have ever done.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to my parkour training now, I work so close to that fear barrier than I think I've done in such a long time. And that comes in peaks and troughs, like with weather, with situations, with training with people, with stuff like that. Although we've had pretty terrible weather here recently, I have been able to go out and do something that scares me pretty much every session.
Yeah, and when it's wet, it doesn't really take much. I remember there was the old joke about the Scottish, I'm fucking repping Scotland, but there's the old joke about the Scottish coaches coming down to Rendezvous. Rendezvous, for those who don't know, is an event ran by Parkour Generations, and it was I think it's day one a coaching event and day two a little bit more free. But there was all this joke about the Scottish guys came down because they were barbarians, because if it rained or whatever, we would get them to do, I say we, I was like 16 at the time, but we would do like rail precisions in the rain. Not because it's possible. I mean, it is possible, but not because it's a good idea, but because it makes you scared.
Yeah.
And even if you jump and you land and you slip off, that's still, you got an experience of what that was like.
Yeah.
But
see, I would hate to do that. I would
honestly, some of the stuff that I've been doing, like the things that really get me are the things that are just like dumb ideas, things that are like, if you think about it, they're really dangerous. But then we go, hold on a sec, our entire job is about managing fear, managing risk, and figuring that out. So for me, I did a swing pre to a foam roller recently.
Yeah.
Just because I was working with Sergey, who's one of our movement coaches, and he hooked up like I wish I could just show you. I wish you're here. But we just got like some rope and attached a precision trainer, which is like 2 meters long, just a big piece of bar essentially, and it was swinging. And he was like, "Oh," I said, "Why don't we jump to it?" And he was like, "No, I can't do that. It's impossible. It was swinging everything." I went, "Try it. Just believe for a second."
Yeah.
And he did it in like 2 goes. I did it and I nearly broke the place. And it took me 20 minutes. And it wasn't the thing of like, I want to get, like, the thing that kept me going was, this is so dumb. And when I land it, it doesn't look like anything. You land it and you stay still and you're like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Because anything else, so the point is after that session on that swingy thing, I was like, a foam roller seems roughly the same. There's a bit more risk. There's a little bit more like, power going into it, but I also know that I can deal with falling this far, even with a roll. But to kind of bring it to this point in a way, I think that in what you're saying, and also within parkour, there is an element of like, we've been doing it for a while, in a sense, like to trust yourself, to be like, you know what, with your repetitions, that's what you're doing. You're just building up the body's awareness and the body's experience so that it knows 99%, if not 100% of the time, I'm going to be fine. So even when you're scared, even if that voice comes up and goes, hey, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've recently thought about, is like, okay, cool. In this moment, I'm scared, but have I ever actually fallen? And for me, this is my personal thing, because I never do something that I'm scared of. So when I'm looking at something, even though I'm scared of it, I'll in my head be like, have I ever within this movement just fallen in a way that I had no idea what was going to happen? And I sit there and go, no, anytime I've bailed, my whole body just takes over and it saves me. So in many ways, my body is more intelligent than what my brain wants it to do. And for me, that's the thing, is trying to build up this idea of how many times have I done this movement and how many times in reality have I actually fallen over? And now at my training now, I touch wood. I very rarely bail, simply because I don't allow myself to even push into that element of I don't know. Now that's a kind of barrier on my training a little bit, but I've allowed it in when I'm scared, which comes up a lot. It's easier for me to overcome that because I simply go, okay, my body's telling me this. How many times have I actually fallen? No. So that won't happen. And I think that then the phrase that Mark Bush, I had the pleasure of seeing him the other month, and I told him this. He did a post, a bit of a long-winded story, but he did a post where he went for a walk when it was raining. And there was a tree, and the tree had like one branch and then a branch stump in the middle of the tree. So you could climb onto a garage, and it was wet, and he looked at this stump, and it would be cool to do like a bounce off and jump to the grass. And in his little post, he was saying that there was a few thoughts in his head being like, oh, it's a bit wet, I'm not sure, blah, blah, blah. And then there was a point where he said to himself, your experience regulates this. He's like, I've been doing this for 10 years, and it is not my thoughts, but it's my experience that will make sure I'm okay. Because as he said, I've never bailed a thing like this. And even if I did slip, I trust that my 10 years or however long of doing this will mean that even if I did slip, my body would save it. And that's genuinely something that helped me so much, because as much as I've been doing it now 10 years, I still feel like that 15-year-old in my head. In a lot of ways, I still feel, and no matter how many times someone can come up to you.
It's because, it's when because we break fear so often, we're always starting from zero. Like whenever you get to a challenge that you're scared of, you're starting from zero. And it's the experience that we've had in this sport that's allowed us to get from zero to breaking the challenge way faster. And that's obviously what Mark was on about, is going from zero, I'm not sure if I can do this, to doing it in just so much faster.
And even when, I think what I liked about Mark's thing is the focus isn't on the result. The focus is on being able to be in that moment and be like, okay, I may not stick it, but at least I can still go for it. I can still give myself new experiences, because that's what I do. I get freaked out by a jump. I go, my experience regulates this, and just go, and then send it. And even if it's not beautiful, I still go, did I do it? Yes. Was it as bad as I thought? No. And then that gives me the confidence to do it again, but this time.
And this is probably the conversation I've had the most over the last week or so. I've been talking to Harvey a lot, and he's been going like, how can you just do it? How can you just go and do it? And it's something that I was never like I've done before, but it's something that I'm thinking more and more about now, is that I want to be an athlete that can just go and do it. And I hear so many stories of like Danny Labaka and someone that's just so in his own head that he can just go, yes, I can do it, and then go and do it. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't practice. A lot of people go, okay, I'm going to do the tack. I'm going to do a running tack to this wall here, but I'm going to do 5 preps first to see if it's okay. Whereas realistically, you don't need that many preps. And this is that experience thing coming through now of the wall's grippy, my shoes are dry, the floor run-up's grippy, it's a big tack. But if I commit 100% on that foot, the rest of it will just happen. And I don't need to worry about it, because when I get into the air after pushing well off a tack or something, my experience will take over and I'll go, oh, look at that, I'm on the wall.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that needs to be practiced more often when it comes to parkour, and something that I'm definitely focusing on more now, of just like, right, you need to go, you need to do whatever it is, a lache pre, a running pre to a rail, you need to just go and do it now, and then you can deal with the consequences after.
One of the I am going to try and take back reins of this conversation a bit, because we're now
we're somewhere else, I think.
We're somewhere else, but again, like, I don't really care, because this is what everyone signed up for. This is what's great about it. It's just like, cool, we can stay here for long. I think what I was going to say was
put a light on. Right, let me put a light on real quick.
I'm full of like, what I was going to say. Oh, I can.
One sec.
Sorry. Hello, people. Ed can't. We can talk about Ed, and Ed has no idea. Ed's courts are rubbish. Don't ever tell him I said Ed's court. Let's not say that. I'm not. Don't tell him that we said that. No, they're not. They're sweet.
Well,
right,
that's not worked really.
Just shine your phone.
Yeah, we're like a ghost.
What I was gonna say was, I think that I've actually fully forgot what I was gonna say. I've thought of a brand new thought, but basically my brand new thought was essentially, yeah, I think it's really important. Tom, whoever Tom is, has just said that this conversation is valuable.
Tom Taylor.
I don't know. Maybe it's Tom Taylor. I actually don't know.
He spoke about how I still got monster cans in my boot.
Yeah, he did. I was going to mention that. Do you have them?
Yeah, of course. When I first drove to Rotherham, which is the Team Catalyst event, it's like a 5-hour drive. I bought a pack of Monster energy drinks, because I thought maybe I would get tired. And this was when I first started driving, so when I was 17 even, and now I'm 23 or whatever. So
and you've still got them?
And they're grotty now. They've never been opened. The Monster stickers completely rubbed off, but I've still got them in my car.
Odds you down one of them before you do a competition. Just one of them, just as like supplements.
Just projectile vomit everywhere.
Well, yeah, what I was going to say was simply just that this is why I wanted to set these conversations up, is not necessarily to have a chance where we can talk about these processes from the athlete's point of view, because I've said this before, as I've been lucky enough to be friends with a number of athletes, and I find that the conversations that, let's say I don't want to do this, but like high level athletes are having are pretty much exactly the same that people on the streets are having, but there's a kind of assumption that these athletes know more, or actually know, like, to have a better understanding. And if I can be so bold to say, I've phoned up I've been lucky enough to be able to phone up and just be like, to my idols, to these guys that I look up to, and be like, yo, here's some questions, what do you think? And a lot of the times they're like, I've never thought of that before. And I'm like, how can you not have been thinking about this when you're doing this stuff? So I think it's not necessarily in a sense to be like, okay, these athletes know everything, but just to be like, let's make it a discussion where we can just say it, because as you said, your experience is completely different to mine experience. And yet we can still.
I'll quite often, I did it the other day. There was a challenge in Bristol, and I know Connor had done the challenge. I will quite often call someone up and go, when you did this challenge, what did you think about? And like, it was a swing round the rail, swing round a lamppost thing, back to a rail, from a rail to a rail. And I FaceTimed him, and I was like, yo, mate, I'm just out training now. And he's like, oh, sick. How did you go about doing this challenge? Because I know, like you said, part of the experience of parkour is learning and figuring it out for yourself. But why wouldn't you gain as much knowledge or understanding about the skill before you embark on the challenge? And I know there's two different ways of thinking about it. You should, some people prefer to start from themselves and then work themselves all the way through the challenge, so they feel accomplished within themselves to have done the challenge. I'm more one of these people that if I don't have an understanding about something, I will go and ask someone else about it, because I feel like that just levels me up even more. So I know a bit about lifting now, but I know nowhere near as much as Tom Taylor does.
For sure.
So I would ask him about lifting. I can lache pretty far, and I have an understanding of how to swing and the mechanics of it, but I can't swing as well as Tim Champion does. So why wouldn't I go and ask? him how to do it. And I think that's happened now because I'm at a level where I'm at and an understanding of where I'm at. I'm able to draw on so many different people because of just through experiences of meeting people. I'm able to pull these favors in kind of if and when I need it.
I think on a deeper level, if I can be honest, like I've tried to go into parkour and try to look up a sort of parkour pedagogy. And I think that for me is one of the biggest things that I see that has benefited a lot of parkour people is what you're just saying is essentially when you're learning something, you just call up your mates. It just so happens that your mates, because of experience, because that you can call up the best in the business to be like, hey, how'd you do it? And then sometimes they're like, yeah, I don't know, I just do it. Do you know what I mean? But I think that's the thing is my point is you and your mates figuring out together. If you went by yourself and just swung it, you will only get your understanding of what it is. Whereas if you can ask somebody else, you can get another perspective. And you probably ask many people about the same technique to take all these things.
Yeah.
To bring it kind of to a close, it's not really a close because I'm only putting a close to the gymnastics portion. We're about to go in and talk about other things. And I think Julian PK, if I'm right, has a question that leads nicely into this. But I'm going to try and summarize what it is that you were saying about what has gymnastics or how can parkour people benefit from a gymnastics way of thinking, right? Yeah. And if you want to expand or if you think that I'm wrong, let me know. I just think that might be an easier way. Yeah. Is that from what I'm getting from our conversations is that when wanting to learn a move, it is better to, first of all, repeat it in one way to stay in a rule. So make rules for yourself. In a way like, okay, I'm only going to do this technique like this. And you aim to get that technique over and over again. And once you've achieved that technique in the way that you want it multiple times, not just like once, but once you get it, you get it. And then you almost like religiously go over it. And for me, it's like, there's the sticking it technique, stick it 3 times or else it doesn't count.
There's that,
But it's this idea of like repeating it. And then once you have it, that's when you can break the rules with it. Because I think that's the thing that, for example, parkour people tend to do a lot is we, as you say, we get it, we practice it a few other times, and then we're like, fuck it, let's try and send a back full out of that pre now, or something like that.
Well, there's a quote that I've heard Tom say loads of times, but I'm going to absolutely butcher it here is, I'm going to try. Sorry, Tom. An artist learns about how to become an artist through a book. You only become a proper artist when you throw the book away, or something like that. And that's the way I kind of approach parkour.
Yeah.
Ish.
It sounds very similar to a phrase that one of the teachers, I mean, it sounds similar. Maybe it's just my interpretation, but one of the things a teacher in Untitled told me, and it really stuck with me, is like, you only fully learn about something if you experience it. Yeah. So you can sit there and learn a whole bunch via a book, as you say, as much as you can, but until you're there and doing it and experiencing it, will you actually know what you take from it? Yeah. But I think for me, just to kind of bring it to a kind of point is there is definitely already within the culture of parkour kind of a respect for repetition. When you look at Calum as well, he's constantly talking about all this stuff, like how important repetition and getting good at it is. But I think with gymnastics, that is the side of the culture, at least in gymnastics, that's almost more than the individuality. Like parkour is good, we've got the individualness to it, but I think that within that individualness, it tends to allow people to kind of deviate away from a surefire way of learning things clean and learning things right. And I think it's that right that people tend to, like parkour people especially, tend to be like, there is no right, there's always different techniques. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Everything's accepted. And, do you know what I mean? They fucking go nuts. But I think that's the thing is like, cool. It's the way that you explained it to me on the first time. Is like, I like the black and white way of learning because it does go point A to point B. I think it's how you then learn that and who you then learn that with that contextualizes it. Do you know what I mean? For example, in my example, I had these old school parkour guys that were saying the exact same thing that your gymnastics guys were saying to you. Yeah, which is just practice and get good at it, and it once is never, etc., etc. Yeah. But I don't think that kind of wisdom is easily acceptable or accessible to the average parkour person on the street. The average kid who's just going out with their mates and being like, I saw a couple of YouTube videos, let's go out and do it. Yeah, because at that point they are having to be like, I'm watching Ed Scott, how do I be like Ed Scott? Yeah. Whereas what we were trying to talk about is how to get them to explore themselves, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Does that make sense? Which is why I wanted to have this conversation with you, to explore these ideas so that people can hear from you and from us talking about how it is about looking in on yourself and learning your own verb.
Yeah.
Great ending to that sentence.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I mean, I would like to go deeper into it, but I think that for just now, that's enough to look at a part of the gymnastics mindset. That we can take more into parkour.
Yeah, for me, looking at it, why there's a certain amount of fundamental skills that to do free running you kind of need to have, and in my head, why wouldn't you want to learn those skills as best and as fast as you can, so that you can then go and experiment? So like once you've learned a front flip, why wouldn't you want to learn a front flip as fast as you can, so then you can go and experiment with your front flips? And I feel like there's you can join this for skateboarding massively.
Yeah, this is where we're going to come.
So an ollie in skateboarding is probably the most fundamental skill that you can learn, because once you can ollie, then you can pop shove it, you can kick flip, you can heel flip, you can tray flip, whatever. But you need to learn that skill first. And
I mean,
if I know what you mean. I like it, but as a coach, why not teach this skill, the front flip? It can be whatever skill, but why don't teach this skill as quick and as successful and as well as you can, so that the people can go off and progress on it, in their own way.
No, fully.
Teach the understanding. I teach the understanding of the skill not as fast, but as well as you can, so that then there's room for freedom, I think.
Yeah, I think
that's what I'm trying to say.
What's funny is, like, as soon as the guys of parkour and gymnastics went away, both of us were like, no, this is the right way to do it. But I think to make my opinion a bit more contextualized, I see it that you can be two things at once. Things come in dualities. I fully agree with what you're saying, but there's also a large part of me that agrees with the other flip side. And I think that because the reason we're talking about skateboarding all of a sudden, peeps, is because I have recently decided to delve into skateboarding and learning tricks, and I've been seeing that people like Joe Scandrett has also, and I got hella jealous the other day when I saw Ed was actually training with Joe. So we're talking about skateboarding, and we're talking about applying these theories to other sports. And that's actually what, to bring it back to some kind of sense of this chat, that's actually what Julian asks. Is Julian says, is there any specific reason that you guys experiment with other sports like skating? Maybe that improves your ability to do more stuff in PK, or is it just for fun? There was also, and has that got something to do with Ed Scott of being well-rounded? Or well surrounded is what it actually says here. I think he means well-rounded. And I think, let's answer that question first.
I just really enjoy having fun. And as like to take it as like right back, I enjoy learning skills, and I enjoy hanging out with my friends and learning new things together. And that can definitely, like me going skateboarding, learning new skills with my friends can have a massive positive effect on my parkour career. Because me going and learning how to do a 5-0 on a grotty little curb in an underpass in Bristol with Joe Scandrett means that we've both kind of, at that specific point, we're both on the same wavelength of learning this new skill together. There's no reason why that same wavelength can't be passed across onto parkour.
It's exactly the same. If I can be so bold.
Exactly.
It's exactly the same.
When we did a swing gainer precision not so long ago, quite a high, I don't know if you saw it, like a swing gainer pre from a high wall down to another wall. And it's the same, we're on the same wavelength there of why are we scared? How can we talk to each other? And I think the main thing is communication when it comes to that sort of thing. Is we're both learning new things, and we're learning how to communicate our thoughts to each other, so we're both able to do the skills. But like aside of that, really, I just really enjoy mainly being outside and learning new skills. So if that be skateboarding, riding a BMX, going kayaking, going for runs, going hiking, like just being outside and enjoying people's company, and the feeling of progressing myself as an individual, getting myself stronger, learning more about things. I just find that enjoyable. But then I also enjoy sitting on the sofa and watching TV. So like it's all these things are something that people can just do.
I think for me, like, I think I very much latch onto this idea of if it's you and your mates, first of all, that creates this environment, because very rarely, and again, I was having this conversation with Ollie, and I think subconsciously in parkour communities or parkour groups or jams, there can be kind of an unconscious this going on because you respect someone who's an athlete or whatever, so you start thinking they're better than you.
And just on that, sorry to jump in on that little point there. This is why I love going to For Love of Motion so much, and love going to events like that so much. Especially with people like Josh, who's in the chat now, Josh Bryant. Not a lot of people know who Josh is, but training with him is just so much fun because he's got a way of doing things, and he does really like technical rail challenges that I won't do because I won't see. That I'll be like, oh, cool, there's a triple cork or a souk full going on over there. But Josh is actually doing this thing that's really scary and really interesting over here. Why don't I go over there?
Yeah.
And I think for the events like For the Love and Hop the Block Slightly, it's just events like that. You go and you talk to people, and you go and you train with people that you probably wouldn't normally train with.
Yeah.
To have an understanding of a skill that you don't really know. And that's what I just love doing that. Like, that's my favorite thing to do at events. Like, go off, find someone doing something really interesting and unique, and trying to learn the skill from them. Like, download that skill, because it's only going to help you in the long run as to become a better, well-rounded athlete.
Yeah, and I think that's why I think having many things, and I find that especially, not all parkour people, but I find that especially some parkour people who are quite high level, they also are interested in other movementy things. Skating is an example, but there's another one that's coming up, which is kendama, which I can talk for days about, but which I won't just now, but I might have to do.
I've got a kendama, but I'm yet to get on the hype.
Mate, don't worry about it. It will come. I know people who hated kendama and didn't touch it, and then one day they come to me and be like, I picked it up. I'm addicted now. Do you know what I mean? It will come. If you want to have a chat about kendama, we can do a whole nother podcast about kendama, because I really, in terms of community, in terms of observing how a community has picked up and gone, the kendama community is really interesting, because it's a mixture of parkour, skateboarders, snowboarders, trickers, and things like that. So for me, if maybe we can have another conversation in the future about community, just as an interesting topic. But I think for me, because at the moment, as I said, unfortunately, due to Dihala, but also due to like personal motivations, I've not really been training. But when I say not really been training, I've still been training. It's just not really been parkour as much, if I'm honest. Do you know what I mean? It's been me going out and trying to train skating. Yeah. It's the same thing with the kickflip. I go out and I get raging. Raging at this board, and I let out all this rage and this rage and stuff, and I still get it. And for me, it's copy paste the same thing. Unfortunately, I'm out here like kind of by myself. But for example, back home, Paul and the Southern Kendama guys, my guys back home, they are also skating more. And I think it's known as tribal learning. I'll go a bit into what I look into, but tribal learning, it's this idea of you find your tribe. It can be anything, but it's usually just you and a group of people that like doing what it is that you do, right? So you've got this group. You then make an event somewhere else that's not in your local place, because you and your group go off to this event where other tribes or other groups from different places come together, and you're having a shared experience.
Yeah.
And then what you do is you've had this shared experience, and then you go back to where it is that you came from, your local communities, and you take what you learned from that shared experience and apply it to your everyday kind of working. And that kind of the cycle of being like, okay, cool, going from my home space, meeting my tribe from different places in a place that's alien to all of us, having an experience, and then coming back. Jams, love of movement, all of everything that you just explained is that it falls into this tribal based way of learning. And I think for me, when I look at parkour, that's pretty much what it is. If you are a young group of people in your local space, I'm not really sure what the point of what I was saying is, so I'm just going to continue this thought, right? But if you're a small group of guys, doesn't matter, of people in your local community, travel is a huge part. You then will look into your next town and see, okay, I'll travel. And that's like, again, that's the way that you learn, taking yourself out of what you're used to, going to a shared platform. And in this case, bringing it back to the point is you guys skating. Both you and Joe are on a sort of similar level because it's a new sport that you're learning.
Yeah.
And that in itself creates this dynamic of you're both learning from each other. And then because you have the skill set to deeply delve in and be like, how are we doing this? And why is this like this? Also, I've found that when talking about skateboarding tricks to people who do parkour and dammer, you start to know how to use the terminology. So it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of like the physics of a backflip. It's not, but do you know what I mean? Or it's kind of like this trick. So I think my point with this, to try and scrape one from the stuff that I just said, is for me, it is also a form of training. It's just not training parkour in the purest sense of jumps. For me, it's training parkour in the sense of community, in the sense of like, in the sense of like going out and training with people, achieving new things, doing stuff I didn't think was possible before, and doing it with your mates, which is a huge part. Because as much as I'm by myself quite a lot of the time, with Kendama as well, I was always away from my guys because I was in Ollerup. When I do these things, I feel that they're there, as cheesy as that sounds. Like in my mind, it's those people that I have in my head.
Do you call that parkour, or do you just call that learning? Because I that's in my head, you're just progressing yourself as a human being there. You're not progressing yourself as a parkour athlete. You're becoming better at learning. And I see a lot of people like putting a lot of emphasis on the sport of parkour as this massive way of life and stuff. In my head, I see parkour and free running as a sport. But I see myself, the skills that I learn through parkour and free running are life skills. Like learning how to do something, learning how to communicate, how to teach someone. I'm really like grateful for the sport of parkour, because that's been the means for me to learn how to progress myself in so many different aspects. Just to become a better person.
I think, I fully agree. This is the kind of irony of the position I'm in at the moment. I'm now head coach in Germany in the head place, blah, blah. And I'm just kind of like, hold on a sec. There's more to this there's more to the energy that I give to parkour than just parkour. And I think,
because I would argue what you're saying then, that's not parkour. In my head, that's not parkour.
Yeah.
You're just becoming a better person.
But for
sports.
Keep going.
Yeah, you're just becoming a better person through doing other sports, which will indirectly affect your parkour, because you'll be able to coach it better, or you'll be able to practice it better. But I think allowing yourself to kind of drift into maybe another skill set helps the skill set that you're doing already.
100%.
But there's definitely a ground where doing too much of another thing will like affect the thing you affect parkour negatively. So doing too much skateboarding will negatively affect your parkour eventually, because you're not doing as much parkour. Your mindset will be different. You're stepping away from it slightly. But that again, that's not a bad thing.
No.
Like everyone needs a rest from what they're doing. Like it's very hard to find someone that's been doing what they've been doing for 50 years and still are massively in love with it. It goes through peaks and troughs. Like in summer, everyone's going to be stoked on training parkour again, because you can. Like the weather's good, the spots are sick, everyone can travel and train. Whereas right now, the weather's a bit shit. The ground's wet. You can't really train parkour that much, but you can still learn to communicate skills. You can still learn to to learn in a group, to teach other people. Might not be parkour, but it will positively affect your parkour, if you know what I mean.
No, fully. I think just kind of address that idea of that. I think, back in the day, and I think we all did it to an extent, maybe not you, just because you already had it. Oh, look at that face.
That's a bit bare, isn't it?
Oh, look at you. This fucking changes everything.
Mate, it's dark outside.
No, I know. I'm so lucky. Everything's dark outside, but I've got these massive lights.
Yeah.
The reason why I would call it parkour, and it's not calling it parkour, I totally see what you mean. I'm only using that language because we are primarily talking to parkour people, but
Yeah,
I have
of course.
I've started to address that, because when I was younger, I used to say parkour is completely different to any other sport. And what I was meaning by that,
a lot, because I hear that a lot.
Yeah, you hear it, and it's true to an extent, and I do think it's true, but I don't have enough time at the moment to explain how that fits in my mind necessarily. But I do think it is different, but it's different in the same way skateboarding is different. It's different in the way that hip hop is different. And I won't get into it now. If you guys are interested, let me know in the comments below, and maybe I'll make another video about it. But the point I'm trying to say is, you're right, it is learning. And at the end of the day, I think it's a specific type of learning as a collective, learning as a group. But I think that's why, for me, this idea of training is because we originally talked about it with parkour. But as you said, what is the main goal of parkour? Is to be well-rounded.
Yeah.
And I think that's why parkour then comes into sort of more philosophical aspects, is because, okay, what does well-rounded mean? Does well-rounded mean just in parkour? But as you say, like, there's interest in other things. What does well-rounded mean in the context of being mobile or being movementy?
Yeah.
And I think that I am somebody who now, if I'm honest, a lot of people come up to me and like, wow, you can just do everything, can't you? Because I've just juggled or I've done something. But I remember the days where I couldn't do anything at all. And I think it's this idea of in order to become well-rounded, you do need to not become well-rounded, but do you know what I mean? In order for that to happen, you do need to venture in, but the learning experience is the same. So in my mind, I'm seeing a lot of connections between my learning experience of skating that I have with parkour.
Yeah.
But it's not exactly the same, it's just similar. And I think, as you say, the better you become at learning something, the easier it is to learn, in a way, because you're not just learning it as like an activity. You understand how learning is something that you can observe from an outside perspective.
It's very personal. It's a very personal thing of how you learn. I learn better through a small group of friends being. If a lot of people are watching me, I don't learn as good. Or if I'm on my own, I don't learn as good. I think that's probably the same for most people. But to go back onto your point of being well-rounded, I think that thought of being well-rounded in parkour can directly affect you to be more of a well-rounded person. So my aim of being this person in the middle that can do everything at any time, like that, having that attitude can directly affect to skateboarding. Like, I want to be a well-rounded skateboarder. I want to be able to skate down the road and be able to ollie up onto curbs and just be able to travel through the city fine.
Exactly.
But also, if I get to a skate park, I'd love to be able to ride and pump around a bowl. And I want to be a well-rounded human being. I want to be able to run a 5K in under 20 minutes and also be able to squat 200 kg. Like, I would love to be a well-rounded human, as it were.
And in order to be well-rounded, you need to have a good understanding of learning and how
I feel like
learn.
I personally, progressing my parkour to be well-rounded is only going to affect everything else to be more well-rounded. So at the moment, I'm young and I'm focusing on this one thing to become very well-rounded as parkour athlete, but without focusing too much on everything else. And I know that learning all these skills to become more well-rounded will eventually help me in later life to, do you know what I mean?
For sure.
I'm focusing on a small circle at the moment, when actually that is affecting the whole, like, Ed Scott as a person.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing, is people see us through the lens. People can see you through the lens of parkour because that's the main thing that they see you do. Whereas I know that you are more than that as well, and also you want to be more than that in a way. You know what I mean? And I think that's something that's cool as well, is because if you were only, let's say, a passenger of parkour, you wouldn't be doing what it is that you do, because you're also bringing the gymnastics element and pushing the game. Do you know what I mean? I didn't see cork precisions, or at least corks over gaps, until I started seeing you push those things. And it's not that they didn't happen before; they might have, but it's more the point of, I see that you're the idea that you're not just a passenger of the game. You're there to help in your own way drive it.
And I think something that's important to mention here, for people aspiring to be parkour athletes and aspiring to be the best at what they do, it's not a bad thing to have a niche. And I know a lot of people say that you want to be the most well-rounded athlete or whatever, but if you look at myself, my niche for a bit was flip precisions, and I would do a lot of flip precisions. I'd get really good at flip precisions, and that's kind of what brought me up to a level of these of other people that are very skillful. If you look at Travis, congainers, he learned congainers and he did them in lots of different places, got very well known for a certain skill. And then now that he's got up to that area, he's now become a very well-rounded athlete, and his stick can do everything as well. And I think a lot of pressure, negative connotations get put to being like a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
I think it's necessary to be a one-trick pony when it comes to certain skills, as long as you are also competent in all of the other areas. I think that's just something important to say, because a lot of people become well-rounded, but are just like almost like a jack of all trades sort of thing. Like they're okay at everything. But for those that want to, I don't know, like, I don't know, it's really hard to explain, but for those that want to push and be recognized and stuff like that, I think having a certain skill that you're really good at can help with that.
And I think it needs to come from you, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? It needs to come from you. If you are trying to, this is what the phrase that I used earlier, which I actually kind of like, is passenger of the game. You can still be pushing you can still be pushing that side of you and trying to be good, but if you're following what at the time everyone, like, let's say con gainers at the time was really, really cool, so you just train con gainers because they're really, really cool, it won't have the same effect. You need to be doing something that you feel is good and pushing that, and then when you start getting that to a sick level, that's when people are going to start noticing. Instead of just following what other people do, if you know what I mean.
I'm definitely one for following what people do, like jumping on trends and stuff like that. But I feel like
it's not a bad thing at all.
No, not at all. And I feel like I've come from understanding, because of how many times I've been able to adapt and change my training. I feel like I'm able to jump on the trends very quickly, which allows me to progress.
But you learn them, though. Maybe that's the thing, is you jump on the trends because you learn them, because you're like, boom.
Through learning how to learn other stuff. Like, and it comes right back, full circle back to gymnastics. I learned the appropriate preps to then learn the skill. And I think I'm able to train that very well. I'm able to go to do double cork precision. I need to be able to do a double cork, a cork pre, a cork gap, a double cork gap, and then a double cork precision. I think you need to, for me personally, I need to look at skills and break them down into manageable chunks, which is what I was taught in gymnastics. And it's what I've practiced in parkour.
I'm going to do something that is highly unprofessional, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that anyone who's watching, Vusi, Tom, Julian, all them, you guys have a chance to quickly ask Ed some questions. Because if I'm honest, I really need a piss. I'm just going to say, I'm going to jump out of this real quick. I'm going to take myself off, if that's okay with you, Ed.
Yeah, of course.
And then what we'll do is we will come, because we're about to break the record. I think we've already broken it, but we're about to hit a potential two hour chat.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to bring it back to a close. I do want to talk a bit about some weightlifting, because I know we talk about it personally, and also if Tom is there, let's have him kind of part of it. But I want to talk about weightlifting. But for now, I'm going to remove myself like this, and you guys can write, or you can jump on microphone and chat to him. Please don't all talk at once, or else he won't understand a thing you say. Cool. Have fun.
Safe.
In 1 sec. Sorry, Dad.
Yeah, no stress. Yeah, if anyone has any questions at all, if they want to unmute, I think you guys are on mute. If you want to unmute yourself or put it in the chat. But if not, don't worry. I guess I'll just talk about stuff that's going for that I'm up to now. I'm training parkour quite a lot at the moment, just down to the weather being okay, but it's gone pretty bad at the moment. I'm just training parkour a lot, and I'm like really excited to start this understanding of how to break fear better. Talking to people like Phil Doyle and Harvey and Joe Scandra, and understanding on how they break fear so well in their respected areas. Because Phil Phil is a character, but has a massive understanding of how to break fear very well. Just because of his experience that he's had, like his strides that the guy's able to do is just insane. So yeah, understanding.
I'm back. What's happening?
Yo.
That was hell. Did anyone ask questions?
No, I was just talking about breaking fear.
I actually totally forgot to just be like, if nobody says anything, you can just chat about stuff.
Yeah. I was talking about fear.
Cool. So we are quarter to half past wherever it is you are in the world. I want to quickly kind of, as we said, I wanted to talk a little bit about skating. I think we actually covered quite a lot of what I wanted to kind of touch on, which is this idea of the community, and going out skating is very similar to practicing parkour in a kind of community sense, in terms of how we interact with each other and how it allows us to, with friends, just spat everywhere, with friends, develop on the same learning skills that we've got from parkour. But I don't think it's limited to parkour. I think there's a lot of sports out there that have a similar way of viewing the world or viewing learning as well. I want to come to weightlifting, because it's something that personally I have done on and off, not in a very amateur way, since I was like 17. And I've kind of watched how weightlifting became more and more prevalent in parkour, in terms of like, okay, cool, we now use it as a training method, but I also see that parkour is bigger than just that as well. There's now different styles of parkour that don't necessarily talk about big heavy weightlifting. I think it's also a British thing, if I can be honest, to talk about this. There's when I went to Denmark, the first thing that they turned around and said is, oh, you've got a very British style. And I was like, what does that even mean? And they were just like, it's like kongs, big jumps, big kongs, big jumps, big plyos, big strides. And I think that in itself tends to be a lot of power moves. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So cheers, Josh. Thanks for being
Josh.
here. So I just wanted to ask you, how did you get into weightlifting? Why is it that you do it? And how have you seen it affect your training? And has it changed the way that you look at training at all?
Yeah, so to start from the beginning, I got into weightlifting I started weightlifting a little bit just because I was a bit interested in it. I started going to a gym and started doing deadlifts and squats and stuff like that. And then Tom Taylor came down to where I live, like Exeter, and he moved down to Exeter and was like, look, you guys should live with me. I can help you. I can teach you a lot. And I'll design a program for you and stuff like that. So we went and lifted at his house for, I don't know how long for like maybe a year or maybe longer. And we just went, he had a spare room in his house, and we went to his house twice a week, and he taught us how to lift properly and designed a program for us, and like told us what we should and shouldn't be lifting, and just made it progressive. And then from there, I've been working with him very closely for the last 2 years, maybe even longer. And yeah, it's just been sick. The main thing I found from it wasn't the fact that I became some crazy powerful, like have the biggest plyo or the biggest standing pre in the game, because I don't have that. I've got quite a big plyo on me. I don't really have a big standing pre. But what I did find was that I was able to take impact so much better than I would have been able to anyway. And also my risk to injury was massively increased as well. Massively decreased, sorry.
Yeah.
I was able to save, I think, block out the point of getting tendonitis at all or anything like that. And I've been lucky I haven't had tendonitis. I've got sore knees every now and again, but it's usually when I haven't been lifting for a while. But like my risk aversion to injury, I think, has just massively helped. I don't know if those have seen, I did a souk full in a competition in NAPC, and came down really heavy on one leg and like smacked it on the corner of a wall. And I think if I hadn't been lifting, then that probably would have done some serious damage. Whereas I was not walking or training for a day and then got back into it the next day.
Wow.
So.
No, that's madness. Yeah, I think the idea of the risk of injury is, or I didn't say that very well at all. the idea that weightlifting prevents injury is a huge reason why I personally have started to get back into it, is for the want to, if you want to start pushing your game, let's say you're training at like 80-90% of your capacity, you need to know that you've got a strong body, that you can take it. I think also for me is something almost in the other direction, is if I haven't trained a lot, I'll feel particularly weak, even though my legs are actually still strong. I'll still have this back in my mind. It's like, you haven't taken impact, or you haven't taken jumps like this for a while. How strong are you? So for me to get back into weightlifting is a bit of a, it makes my legs feel stable. Do you know what I mean? I feel strong, and I recognize more when my legs are actually tired, or are they just telling me they're tired because I don't really want to do this jump in a way. You know what I mean? So I really rate that. I want to talk a little bit about, because as I said, we've done this before. I wanted to say, you were mentioning the do's and don'ts, and I know that Tom is here, so I hope he doesn't mind potentially you writing out a few of those do's and don'ts, because I think that weightlifting is one of those things that is really good, but the reason why I haven't necessarily, let's say, gone hardcore with it up until like roughly nowish is simply because I've been so aware that there are mistakes that you can make in terms of technique that has stopped me from doing that. I did squats because squats are fairly easy technique, but as I think I mentioned, is like my squat, I haven't really maxed ever, simply because I was so, not squats, deadlifts. I've never really maxed simply because I haven't had the confidence and the knowledge of the technical side. So are there any kind of beginner mistakes that people do when they start lifting that can potentially help them?
So I was super lucky, because I was able to work with Tom, and he was able to go, look, this back flat here, bum down here, to pull the chest up, to do the squat properly so you can protect your back. And I think for anyone that's getting into weightlifting and stuff like that, I think that is an important thing that they need to go and learn. So either go to someone that does do the sport of like powerlifting, and go and learn the skill from them. I'm no coach. I haven't coached lifting before, so I can give my opinion on stuff, but if you're going to go in lifting, go and learn from someone that's a lifting coach, because they're obviously going to teach you better than I am. They're just the things that I've been told are, just make sure your back's nice and flat, you pick your head up so that your chest is nice and open, and you're using your legs to drive, not you're losing your lower backs at all. They're the main things that I really focus on when I'm personally lifting. Just ensuring that back doesn't come rounded, so that the pressure's going up through the legs, up through your glutes, up through the main muscles in the body, not going through your lower back or anything like that. It could cause injury.
From the sounds of it, I think as with anything, and as you just said, is that as much as you're not a coach, as you said, so everything that you're saying is kind of personal, but then again, your personal is looking quite good considering how much you're lifting at the minute. But again, it's the sort of thread of the theme of what you're saying, and it ties into everything you said before as well, as this idea of find somebody who knows it and talk to them about it. As much as, and again, we can still talk about it, and we can still look it up. I was using this book idea of what we were saying earlier, but until you throw away the book and actually get involved with someone who can literally give you feedback with what exactly you are doing.
There are hundreds and hundreds of YouTube videos on how to lift successfully and stuff like that, and I just think doing your research just really helps. I was blessed that I had Tom that was willing to put some time and effort into me and Charlie, so that we could learn to lift properly.
I think there's an element of like the internet. We all have the internet. The internet is an unlimited voice, part of knowledge, but I also an unlimited pot of knowledge. I need to slow down my speaking, but I think that there is an element of when you know somebody that you can go to, you will learn way more than just reading something or seeing some person you don't know. So I think in that sense, it's sick that you had Tom. I'm sure that, I'm just going to say this, maybe Tom is, if those of you are interested, Tom is somebody that I think, since me talking to you about weightlifting, that's the #1 name that you've said. And obviously Tom, movement power is pretty, at least I'd like to think, pretty well known in the parkour community for being the strong boy master. So if anyone who's watching this, Tom is definitely the guy to look at. There's no real excuses of somebody not to message, if you know what I mean. But at the end of the day, what you're basically saying,
movement power
movement power
on Instagram.
strong boys include Tom, Tim Champion, amongst others. I'm sure he's made many a strong boy off of some skinny boys. So explain how to explain somebody else's job badly is what I just did there. Make strong boys out of non-strong boys. But yeah, man, I think that's the thing as well. And I guess to tie, we can kind of come to an end now is the thing that I feel threads through all of these interviews that I've been kind of doing and trying to delve deep into what makes our community unique, or what is it about our community. And it's this idea of simply doing it with your mates, exploring with your mates. And as much as you can get educated on some stuff, and with some stuff you might want to get educated on, i.e. the basics of things and stuff, it is the experience of doing it with your mates that basically keeps you going as well.
Yeah.
And I think that something that happens in the parkour world is that sense of community, and the sense of like knowing someone. Do you know what I mean? Like the reason why I have the confidence to just phone you up and be like, yo fam, do you want to just do an interview? Is because I've known you for a while, we've had chats, and we've developed that sort of friendship over the years, where somebody who hasn't necessarily met you before I remember I went to Love of Movement when I was like 18, and I remember seeing Pasha and Jason Paul trying some stuff on a wall, right? And around them were like a whole bunch of Farang children who were like 100 meters, not 100 meters, they're like 5 meters away, but watching them like the best thing. And I remember that feeling of being like, oh my God, that's those two. And then seeing the effect it has on these kids, and me just being like, nah, I can't do wall tricks. I'm parkour boy. I can't, at the time I couldn't do it. So I was just falling over, but deliberately falling over and just chatting to Pasha and chatting to Jason to be like, guys, kids, you can talk to these people.
Yeah.
And I think
I was one of those people as well, massively.
Yeah.
Like I'd go to events and I'd see people and I'd be like, oh my God, that's them. That's amazing. I still get that because I don't see these people very often. They're like, it's so like, it's silly when you think about it, but it's one of those things that like you kind of build up in your head, like, oh my God, it's them. They're so good at so.
I think it shows passion. I think it shows passion for what it is that you do, and as much as it is fanboyish, I like to think that at the end of the day, it's honest. Like if we can, there's a Dizzy Wright. Dizzy Wright's a rapper. I really like him. He talks a lot about this stuff. And there's a few set phrases that I have really stuck with me, and one of them is inspired by who I'm friends with. And when I look at all of my friends, when I look at the fact that I'm inspired by the fact that I can say that you're a mate of mine. Do you know what I mean? I'm inspired because when I watch you, it's not just Ed Scott doing his thing. He's like, my boy, he's doing this. And it generates a kind of like, I want to do that too with him. And which is why when I say I saw the skating with you and Joe, because I saw Joe a month or two ago and I was skating, and then suddenly it makes me feel like, oh, cool, it's a lot closer than it would be if it's just on a screen. And I think that for parkour especially, the thing that does make it special, and this is my personal thing, the thing that does make it special is the fact that we can meet our idols in a way. Do you know what I mean? Football players, 13-year-olds will never be able to sit down at a jam or sit down and just chat to Ronaldo or Messi. Yeah. So they can never meet their idols. We can meet our idols and immediately get rid of that, or not get rid of it, but immediately kind of contextualize that kind of idea, looking up to someone and then meeting them as a person like this. Yeah. Which is why, as I say, a lot of the reason why I wanted to do this kind of chat is just to bring that level of like, cool, let's have a conversation with these people.
And I really enjoy just sitting down and talking to people anyway. I think there's definitely a time and a place for it, for sure. Like if I'm in a training mode and I've got skills that I want to be doing, I'll probably just be like cracking on, keeping myself to myself in that. Again, coming back into that selfish nature of like, this is I've come here to do this, let me do this. But then like the chats that we've had like after training are just often the best chats, because you've got out everything you wanted to do, and now you're open. You're like, cool, let's conversate, let's talk.
Yeah, you've had that experience of the day of training, and then now you can sit down and reflect on how that training fits into your schedule. I have that. I talk too much, and I often talk when I train as well. Do you know what I mean? I'm a bit of bits of both. I'll be like, wow, but the energy is constantly there. So I trying to reclaim that selfishness for your training and understand that, yes, as much as it's a social thing, you are here to do something. There is a thing that
Yeah.
If you don't, it's a horrible thing to say, but it's like if you're not training but still being there, it's like you don't have that experience to tap into. So even if you train and you're scared of something, that day you can sit next to somebody else and be like, hey, this thing scared me. And then no matter how good this person is, they will still be able to relate to you about
the same. Yeah, the breaking through the fear is always the same.
Yeah.
No matter if I'm doing a triple twisting double back or doing a jump to a foam roller, the fear, there's still fear there, and breaking the fear is always going to be the same. So for someone that's just done their first precision to someone that's doing their first double back off high bar, they can relate over they've both broken something today that's helped them progress in parkour or as a person.
And I think just to, because we were just, this is a thought, but we were talking about how gymnastics, the way in which you were learning gymnastics was essentially fear management control. Do you know what I mean? The more repetition, the less chance that fear, or if that fear does come in, the more confidence you have to like forget about that fear in a way. And I think that that's also something for me when it comes to learning new skills, or let's say in these two examples, we're talking about skating and weightlifting. The fact, if I can get the confidence to go, because skateboarding is completely different. Like with just to quickly go on a rant, parkour is basically the entire time you're preparing to be safe. Right, you're getting to the point where like I need to know for 100% I'm going to get this because it is dangerous. Do you know what I mean? Whereas skating is the complete opposite. Skating, you just need to have confidence.
Yeah,
it's almost like confidence is more important than tech. You just need to go with it as if you're going to be fine. Which is for me a complete paradox of what parkour has taught me. But in some ways, it really helps me just to be like, I don't even need to know if I can do this. I'm just going to believe. And sometimes it works. And weightlifting as well. Weightlifting, you're sitting there and you've got like. You're really working your legs to the point where you're moving up this slowly.
Yeah.
But again, it kind of overcomes that fear of being like, well, if I can lift
this
heavy, this, then maybe one jump that I'm scared of I can do. And I think that's another thing is within all these things, it's this idea of like by doing lots of different activities and putting yourself outside of your comfort zone, it does then help your fear management of all these other things. Whereas if you just do parkour and only see, or anything, but if you only do it through one lens, it will be harder for you to tap into these other parts of your brain to really fully understand it. And that's why I liked our conversation of parkour and gymnastics, because in a lot of ways they are completely opposite, not opposite, but they can be argued to be very different ways of thinking. But actually we are humans. We are people. We are able to have two conflicting ideas in our heads at the same time. It's about how we look at it. And it's just too easy for us to get, especially parkour. The parkour community is a lot of generalizing, is a bunch of opinionated youngish men. So we just like to put our opinions out there, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if we're not able to have this kind of duality thoughts, then we end up arguing against somebody who's also us in the same way. And that's why I just took a moment with this particular conversation, because when we talked about it in Ollerup, it was one of the first times that I had this conversation, not as parkour versus gymnastics, but as parkour and gymnastics doing this. Again, me just going on mad chat. What's going on here? People are chatting. Vusi has now left. Josh has now left. I think we're now on 2 hours. That is an achievement. Good and Tom, I think Tom's been here the entire time. Jan has been here the entire time, and Julian has been here the entire time. That's amazing. I'm definitely not through. I can speak for days about stuff, but I'm kind of through. The cognitive part. I can't really think. I'm just wandering. Thank you. I just want to first of all say thanks. And is there anything that you, as like not necessarily as a final thought, or anything you liked about this conversation, or anything that you want to say?
I just like the fact that we're able to sit down and really go into detail about how to aid progression. I think that's the main thing. And like how learning certain skills through other activities can help when it comes to parkour, or just to become a better person. I think that's the main thing that I'll probably take away, that I would like people to take away from this conversation, is that there's no correct way of doing it, but there's also lots of different ways of doing it. And the original parkour way of going out and learning completely individual might not always be right. And the gymnastics thought of set preparations and bashing it through as fast as you can might also not be right at a certain time. I think it's giving people the armor and the understanding to hopefully identify when to use each tool. I think that's the main thing that I'd like to express.
That was amazing. That's pretty much, I like that idea of how and when, and I think in order to get to that stage, you need to take on other people's perspectives. If you
need to practice both. You need to practice both.
Yeah, and there's a practice of practicing that. Do you know what I mean? Practice doesn't just mean like, oh, I'm just going to practice. It's a practice to be like, hold on a sec, am I taking this into account? Hold on a sec, are you addressing your cognitive bias or addressing your biases and things like that? But I think we can go on for days, as I said.
Yeah, we could.
Personally, this is genuinely a dream come true, if I can say that. Because I remember straight up, and this is the thing, if I'm honest, I've just made, like, as we talked about, one of the things I love about parkour is that I can call some of my biggest idols my mates.
Yeah, for sure.
And so for me I know that it makes people uncomfortable in a way to be like, yes, but it is the fact that I'm so grateful, the fact that I literally messaged you almost this time last year, but just an idea.
Yeah.
And then, it took time to develop and it's still here. And I'd like to think that this is something that you'd like to do again. Oh my God,
definitely.
If my laptop survives. Something we do again, and again, just through this there's always topics that we can talk about. So for me, genuinely, it's a dream come true. Thank you for being part of it, because
thank you for having me on, man.
My job is to talk with my mates. That's what's happening. And even when we do open up, I think this is something that I'm definitely going to try and continue, is these kinds of form of chats, not quite interviews, not quite.
I'd love to do it at an event with just loads of people, get everyone together and have a big conversation.
That is low key, as you know from our chat and all of that, is low key a kind of thing that I'd like to push more in the community, is using jams as opportunities to discuss things as a community, not necessarily just talk about each other on social media or when we're separated. But this is the starting steps of just discussing. And again, it's so sick that you're here, so sick that you're showing support to stuff like this. And I also saw that in your circle, I saw that Tom Taylor was also on a similar podcast recently with my guy Lewis. I need to look at that because I haven't.
You need to listen to that. Yeah, Tom did one. Daryl Stingley's just done one.
Yeah, I need to
Tim Champion's done one, and they're like half an hour, 35-40 minutes long. So it's like perfect time to go and like go for a walk or go on your way to work. Highly recommend listening to those.
This interview seems like something you need to listen to when you're crossing a country or,
on
a very long
hike.
But yeah, man, I guess all there is to say really.
Yeah, no, those ones are just different.
No, they're different. And also, to be fair, if I'm fully honest, I mean, this is me just chatting right now, but to be honest, this is a skill set that I have only just started to try to use, is this chat. I'm very good at live conversation, but it is a skill set that will come. And maybe one day, I doubt it, and I'm not even sure if I want it, but maybe one day I'll be able to do a conversation in half an hour.
Well, sometimes. It depends what you're talking about, isn't it?
But anyway, before this turns into another, I did this with Julius. I kept saying, and now we're going to finish up, and then a new idea would come in. So last thought, thank you so much for the people here who are watching. If there's anything that you guys want to hear more of, I'm sure that we can ask Ed to come on another time and talk about this stuff. I've definitely got a few more that I want to talk to him about. Tom, since you're here, I potentially might, because there's been a lot, I've seen a lot of what Tom does, and we've never really actually had a chat. So maybe Tom might be somebody I could get on here if he's willing to randomly chat rubbish with me to an empty hall. But yes, thank you so much for coming. Ed, again, thank you for doing that. I hope you had fun.
Yes.
And I'm not very good at this end round, but we'll just say thank you for today. Thank you for today.
Thank you everyone that's watched. I hope you got something out of it.
I hope there's some kind of sense. There must be some kind of sense that's in the 2-hour ramblings of me and you.
Something there.
Anyway, thank you so much. Talk to you again soon. And much love. Stay healthy, stay alive. Much love and bye.
See you guys later.
Bye. Bye.